Pando Days host for today's event is Brandt Williams. Brandt is a member of the Pando Populous Board of Directors, has a strong background in entrepreneurial development, including the running of an incubator in the Bay Area. He launched with fellow board member John Bielenberg, the Pando Institute, out of which they run amazing brainstorming blitzes that use their own Think NATO process. Brandt and John used this process to get Pando Days launched in the fall of last year. We're delighted to have Brandt hosting this event for us today. Brandt, thanks tons, and over to you.
Thanks, Eugene, and thanks everybody for attending today. This is really exciting. When we met in, I believe it was early October of 2019, it was so much fun to be able to start the process, the Think NATO process, with all of the schools. So today we're with Cal State Long Beach, and their project title is We Are the Sea. They are addressing the county goal number 6, and I'll just quote it real quick. That's accessible parks, beaches, recreational waters, public lands, and public spaces that create opportunities for respite, recreation, ecological discovery, and cultural activities. This project deals with creating an ocean engagement ring for the families and neighborhoods of the greater Long Beach area. It's really an exciting project. I grew up in Los Angeles and know firsthand how hard it is to actually get to the sea, if you will, and especially communities that are actually live on the ocean. They tend to have developed over the many decades barriers, if you will, whether they're apartment buildings or they're commercial buildings or industrial buildings that are right next to the ocean. And then it's private, a lot of it's private land, hence the requirement for the state to put in regulations on access to the sea. This project really speaks to the idea of the urban environment being touching the ocean, touching the sea, and touching the wetlands that are around it. So we're very excited to hear more about that. There's a lot to cover here, so I'm going to leave my remarks very, very short. And I'm going to toss the baton, if you will, over to the team lead, Professor Heather Barker, and we're going to hear from the team, from her and the team, about what they've developed. And then we're going to circle back and ask some questions a little bit later. So Professor Barker, it's up to you.
Hello, Eugene. Thank you very much. And thank you to Pando for inviting California State University Long Beach to contribute to the LA County Sustainable Development Goals. Also, thank you to our team. We have a fantastic student team of graduate and undergraduate students that have backgrounds in anthropology, sociology, film, human experience design, interior design, and even fine arts. So this diverse team gives us a lot of perspectives and a lot of tools to work with to realize it. My name is Heather Barker. I am the founding coordinator of the Graduate Human Experience Design Interactions program, the History and Theory of Sustainability and Design courses at Cal State Long Beach, as well as the Immersive Design Research Lab, which is developing this project. So the mission of the lab aligns well with the Pando mission and reaching the sustainability goals that we are all dedicated to. And that mission is to find participatory, human-centered solutions to complex problems in both high and low tech environments. And you'll see some of that high and low tech represented in the solutions that have been developed. I'll share my screen so you can have a little bit of an idea of how this project has developed. So this project originated as the first project for the graduate HXDI program, and that is a tactical urbanism social design seminar with a project titled Urban Ocean Interfaces, recognizing our exceptional position as the largest urban ocean city in the county of Los Angeles. This project has a vertical integration of mission from the global, including the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, 11 and 14, all the way through national, state, of course, the county goal 6 that we are supporting, the City of Long Beach action plan, as well as the university, and all the way down to the values and the mission of the Immersive Design Research Lab. So before we start developing a project, we usually have a question that makes you think. And we talked about our experience of the sea, and we all know this experience of going to the ocean is exceptional, it's unparalleled. You can't really achieve it in any other way, and running and splashing and feeling the sand beneath your toes, and sometimes you may step on a bottle cap or into some brown foam or some tangled plastic, which makes us pose the question, why is that the case? So before we move on with the process, I just want to tell you a little bit about Long Beach. We call it our big little sister city, meaning that it's a big city with nearly 500,000 residents, making it larger than New Orleans, Orlando, even Salt Lake City. Yet it's often forgotten because of its proximity to Los Angeles, which is much larger. The city of Long Beach plays host and is adjacent to the combined ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which together have an annual value in import and export over $100 billion and provide hundreds of thousands of jobs to the region. In addition to that economic and population scale, we also have an exceptional geology that informs the nature of the environment here. And that is represented through the condition that over 1,500 square miles from the basins in the region draining into the Los Angeles River and the San Gabriel River bring all runoff and rainwater into our ocean at Long Beach. That said, Long Beach is also an incredible, diverse and dynamic city with fantastic history. In hip hop, it's one of the most bikeable and walkable urban cities in the US. It has the only off-leash dog-friendly beach in the LA area. It's one of the most diverse cities in the entire nation. It has 5.5 million tourists. It also comes to the conventions, and it's a family-focused, neighborhood-driven city, which is unusual, where cities typically are mostly populated by singles. Conditions that affect the quality of our water, the rainwater that I mentioned before, that pollutants and contaminants into the ocean and the bay and the wetlands is always higher during the wet years that we have. And people becoming ill from poor water quality has a healthcare cost estimated between 20 and 50 million, with 124 sewage spills in LA and Orange County. Now, the city is actively engaging in improving this condition with their reclaiming of runoff water and cleaning it before it gets to the rivers and oceans, their MUST project. And ahead of the Olympics, this becomes extremely important as a co-host with Los Angeles, hosting 8 venues at least, many of those water venues. And Long Beach as a birthplace of over 50 Olympic athletes is something that we're keeping in mind ahead of the 2028 Olympics. So our process is a human-centered, asset-driven design process. So we first begin mapping the assets of our context before we start asking questions, posing problems, or developing solutions. So the character of the city, as I mentioned, describes a lot of assets already. We understand the vibrant and diverse and engaged companies in the Long Beach area. Many very innovative and leading global are here, as well as grassroots organizations, nonprofits, and many city departments and agencies that are all working towards the health of the environment, as well as creating a resident-friendly infrastructure. So the process took us on a journey which led us to understanding that we are creating a neighborhood-driven system of change, and not a single project or an object or an event, but a system. And the system is bound and connected by a over 30-mile ring of bike trails around what we're calling Greater Long Beach. As I mentioned, the city is bordered on the east and the west by rivers, on the south by ocean and bay, and connected on the north side of the ring through some of the most diverse neighborhoods in the country. We are targeting those areas in the first phases to bring families and children to the ocean as a part of experiential learning, but also to bring people living further south to the diverse communities of Long Beach. So this shows a few of our deliverables that we have integrated into a single system. So there's the gamified mobile ocean engagement app, which we can talk about more specifically, virtual reality tour and information space. So in time of COVID, we are also acknowledging that some people will have this experience virtually as well as in person at some point. Branded banners and artifacts for the network of supporters to be recognized, such as restaurants or businesses. Guided docent tours, social media shared experiences. And in order to empower this neighborhood-driven project, we're also looking to provide grants and engagement plan based on the Cities of Service Neighborhood Engagement Plan and Love Your Block Plan to help the neighborhoods create the events that they want to happen along the ring themselves. In order to make that all happen, though, the ring needs to be identifiable. So there is a wayfinding proposal, and you can see on the web link here at the bottom the case study areas for applying the wayfinding graphics to the ring that exists almost in its entirety as it is. So with that, I will turn it over to the student team lead, Jenny Cho, who will introduce the video that will give you a little bit of an overview about what the experience of writing this ring could be. Jenny, thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather, for that great introduction. We're going to show this short video to you. It's going to take about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And in the meantime, please make sure your comments are open while I share this video link with you right now. Okay, so while we're waiting for everyone to settle in, just want to give an introduction to the video. Just 1 second. The video, it takes you on a journey to the city of Long Beach through a bike path that rings around the city, where you'll explore the various interfaces bound together by a ring of urban ocean engagement. So, does it look like everyone's ready? Okay. And with instructions, I'll count to 3 and say play, and that's when everyone could press play on the video. So 1, 2, 3, play.
We are on a mission to engage an urban ocean city where stewardship is a family affair. A place where you can protect that which you love and find joy and magic in the power of the sea.
We will take you there, people-powered, people-empowered, along a bike path that rings the city. Kids and families will learn as they ride along 2 rivers and engage as they play in the bay, splash in the ocean, build on the beaches, sail at the marina, explore at the aquarium, and discover in the wetlands, making memories that last a lifetime.
If you've never experienced it, if you don't know it, if you've never touched it, how can you love it?
We know the ocean is in jeopardy, and we're ready to mobilize generations to undo the damage done. Through indifference or inaction, we've allowed the rivers to transport garbage to the sea and damage sea life. We've stood by as toxins from across the region make our waters unsafe, and we've granted power to others to regulate, as we've given up responsibility.
We are inseparable from the ocean. It is our livelihood, our lifeblood, our joy.
It gives us a sense of awe and connection to the world, and we're taking it back.
As we move kids and families along the waterways to touch and learn and play, we reclaim these resources. When we integrate and empower them as stewards of the ocean, we all make a commitment.
We all make a commitment, make a promise, represented by a never-ending ring of ocean engagement.
We are the sea, and together we are magic.
Okay, so as you've seen in this video, it shows a hybrid of analog and digital exploration of people, places, and systems. Explore It is an experimental virtual platform that was shown at the beginning of the video, and it is an example that we use as one of the digital tools to show what kind of digital experiences that are being explored in this project. And it also enables us to optimize people's experiences as and create scalability within our project. So in this slide, the images that are inside the circle of bubbles are documents of qualitative research that we have done, and the bubbles that are surrounding these are the synthesis of a brainstorm from the Pando Day Blitz, which informs the rest of the project. And in our human-centered design approach, rather than focusing on the solutions to the problems at hand, we began by prioritizing and brainstorming what assets already exist in Long Beach. We then worked to find solutions as we leverage upon these assets, and by participating and engaging, we created a big data set that aligns to the vertical integrated missions and actions, along with conducting a pragmatic mixed methods approach through a series of actions, through a series of interviews and surveys that we've done. And the first survey that we're doing measures out people's experiences and engagements within their neighborhoods, the ocean, and local waterways. Also to note that throughout these phases of research and strategy, we are constantly in an iterative process as we focus on molding our designs on what the wants and needs are of the individuals, groups, and communities that exist within the screen ring, and identifying what ways in which we can connect people to the recreations and education of their urban ocean communities. As you, Heather, as you see here on the bottom left side, these are collections of logos to show our partnerships and the people guiding our work and values, and by which organizations that we are already familiar with. And on the right side is a network diagram that shows the interconnected nature of organizations that are improving the ocean health and provides access to diverse communities to engage in the parks, beaches, public land, and spaces that our county plan for Goal 6 emphasizes it. And throughout our process, we are building different types of values, while it's also linked back to the urban ocean engagement ring. You can see on this timeline right here. Prior to and during the time of this project's involvement with Pando Days and our county, we have been creating value by establishing relevant relationships and partnerships. And this continues to gain value as we continue our outreach and expand our network strategy, organizations, and missions. Through outreach, we have not only formed valuable relationships and partners, we have also made a contribution with the ports, cities, organizations, resources, and education and technology and neighborhood engagements. And we also hope to see you get involved with this project and participating in our EduPlay tours. And we'd be happy to answer any more questions that you have. And on this slide, these are some ways that you could also get involved with our project.
And I would like to very much thank Jenny and the team and Pando as well. I think that what we can definitely testify to is this project began as part of a tactical urbanism studio project in a graduate program, and Pando satisfying their mission has definitely accelerated this project, where we are already in the midst of building it out and building out these partnerships. We thank you and I appreciate the engagement with Pando.
Thank you for that, Heather and Ginny and the entire team. I'm going to turn this over to our co-host, Brandt Williams.
That was terrific. Thank you, Ginny, and thank you, Heather, for a great presentation. We're going to now entertain some questions from the Chief Sustainability Officer's Strategic Task Force. 3 of the members are here with us today. And they're going to have a chance to, ask a few questions, 1 or 2 questions each, and maybe give some thoughts and ideas that they may have after hearing the presentation. First up today is Russell Green. He's the retired Chief Sustainability Officer for the Cheesecake Factory, and he is a poet and a songwriter, and he's completed a book, Confessions of a Climate Activist: Songs for a Final Century. That sounds very dire, Russell. Final century sounds so
real, honest.
Sounds bad. But he's been involved in sustainable structures for the Cheesecake Factory for many, many years. Has been retired for a few years, and now is focusing his energy on helping Progressive Democrats of America and climate mobilization and activism. So, Russell, let's hear from you about the project.
Thank you very much, Brent. And everybody, can you hear me well enough? See me?
Yes.
Let me just start by thanking Eugene and the Pando Populous team for this vision, and Professor for the heart and scale that you brought to the way you thought about this. I was very impressed with the video, the heart of it, as I said, and the way that you used the started with what you had, did the value analysis, asset analysis. I thought that was all very smart and appropriate. I guess my follow-up questions would be 2, since I have a lot of questions. I would really like to spend time thinking it through a little more with you, but in this venue, I would ask 2. One is that the general premise, which is one that I have a great deal of alignment with, seemed to me, and I want to confirm that this is true, to be this notion of connectivity, that if I'm experiencing it, touching it, in it, it becomes something that I connect to, relate to, and thus the work to respect and preserve. How did you, is that right? Is that your general premise underwriting philosophical premise, and how did you come to that or test that?
I can speak very quickly to that. In general, we intuitively think that is true, but specifically, as we were developing this, we're also applying for grants, and the California Conservancy offers a grant that has a lot of data supporting it, that if people have joy and play in the ocean, that they actually then become more engaged in protecting it.
So thank you for that. And any other students, just wondering if you had any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would kind of like to comment on this too. So I consider myself an expert citizen because I grew up on the side of Long Beach that really doesn't care about the ocean. I grew up in the lower socioeconomic mobility area of Long Beach. And this project kind of did spark a lot of interest in me. So I think that if it did something for me, then it could be really viable for that neighborhood. I mean, I spent more than 20 years in that neighborhood, and I think that it really is a good way to connect that neighborhood and different parts of Long Beach to something that's such a valuable resource for the city, but we just don't see it and we don't think about it. We don't even consider it as for us because we live on that side of town. So I believe in the project wholeheartedly as an expert citizen.
I could say as Jen is coming as an insider of Long Beach, I'm pretty much coming as an outsider of the city. And it was really challenging for me because these were things that I didn't really consider to think about because of so many distractions going on in the world. But just being head on with this project, I really had to like define what it was for me, and talking with the other people, like the residents of Long Beach and the team members and the experts and all of that. So that in a way created that connectivity that I hope to continue on. So, yeah.
It's beautiful. Brent, do I have any more time? I want to be time aware. I have one more question if there's time. That I can
Yeah, if you've got a quick question, that'd be great. One more.
I don't know if it's quick, but I would just quickly just also add one of the other things that I thought was exactly right in my experience, both in business and in activism, that you included in many parts of your presentation, was this notion of community validation, including justice work. They call that ground truthing, to make sure that what you think is right is in fact what the people that live there are looking for and would find that connection to. I guess my just final question, just in a broad stroke, is, of everything that you evaluated and all of the different pieces of the assessment you made, what is the area that you feel is the most concerning and where you would need the most support?
Great question.
Do any of you want to take that from the students? I think that they're so immersed in the tactical that it's sometimes hard to step back and see the strategic part of it. But we have are excellent relationships and networks with different departments in the city, with the ports. And I think that we need to do a first, which is also on our timeline, a proof of concept, just to start a few catalytic events in some of these neighborhoods to support the neighborhoods to do that and to promote them in order to generate this culture of hosting these events along the ring. And some support to actually do some marking and wayfinding of the loop itself, so it is something that's visible and identifiable to the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You know, and along that ring, there are so many big companies and organizations that actually command a presence in those areas that, you know, finding that common ground or common interest for them as well as the community is going to be a challenge. I mean, there's no question about it. All right, let's jump to the next. Thank you, Russell. Great questions and terrific comments. Chris Ree is next. He is of the Burrow-Happold engineering firm. And I had the pleasure of hearing a presentation from Chris about, God, it's been a long time now. It's probably been a year and a half now, where he came into a CSO task force meeting and presented the sustainability County sustainability plans and was immersed up to about here in his in the plans and created the framework, if you will, as the project manager for building out that plan from the consulting firm. Chris, let's hear from you.
Thanks very much. Can you all hear me? I'll take that as yes. Okay. Thanks so much. Really, it's a pleasure to be hearing about your work so far. And I'll start off by saying, like, I really commend that you're providing this alternative vision for the future. This is so important and fundamental to be starting there, and not necessarily starting with the problems, but starting with the that alternative vision. And that vision seems to be of moving from this model of extraction, of using the sea to extract energy and food, and a receptacle for toxic byproducts, and really a tool for regeneration and community building. This goal was just so important in the development of the sustainability plan, and we heard from so many individuals about how difficult it was to access nature, the ocean and the mountains in LA County. And there are stories of children who grow up in LA County and never have been to the beach and have never been to the ocean. So really, I commend you for providing that access and asking these questions about, who does it belong to and who makes the decisions. Okay, so I think the why for the project is very, very clear. And I'm going to ask you 3 different questions about the what, the who, and the how, which is what has been sticking out in my mind. The first is that I am a little bit unclear about what the ring entails. And I saw in one of the introductory slides, there were a number of different ideas that had popped off about collecting data, about sort of some event related events, but I didn't really understand how that was connected to the vision and some of the background research that you all were conducting. So I'm wondering, what's the common thread?
Do one of the students want to answer that?
I have a comment. I don't really know if it's going to answer it, but I do want to say that I think part of why we're doing what we're doing is because we don't want to build something and hope that people will use it. We don't want to build something and say, I hope people use this to go to the beach. We want instead to get the community to engage with the parks and the oceans, and then see what they need to support whatever they come up with. I hope that makes sense. I think maybe Heather will have to answer that further, though.
I think
Josh, would you like to step in for a second?
Yeah. I think the big what is it that our community needs. The communities are always at the core of everything, and especially now where we're seeing these changes in times, we need to develop something that's relevant for them. So everything that we're doing is kind of centered around our why. So from our why, we develop our what, and it's what the community will need. And the community needs a way to be connected back to the ocean. As for the how, we're kind of developing that out of, again, from our why to our what, and then we're bringing that forth. So as we collaborate more with the community and continue to do field immersion, we are able to evolve the project so that it remains relevant and necessary. The biggest part that we're trying to address in our what and how is accessibility and inclusivity. And that's, again, kind of connecting back to that community. When the community leads, as we're going in through field engagements, interviews, and collection data with the survey, they reveal the what and the how through that process.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks so much. And I think that's really helpful for me in understanding where you are now. And it sounds like the next stage of really when you are doing that ground truthing and when you are really involving the community is when this is, you're sort of letting it take the shape that it's going to take and listening to those voices. So I guess related to that, I'd love to hear about how you plan on doing that, especially since we're all so challenged, being here behind our screens and not able to go out and talk to each other face to face as we once did.
I can speak to how to initiate that. So in addition to at Cal State Long Beach, I'm also the design strategy lead for the Office of Civic Innovation for the City of Long Beach. And in that role, I have led a lot of design thinking workshops with many of the 72 neighborhoods in the city of Long Beach to solve problems or organize community cleanups or beach cleanups in different areas. So we already have that relationship to all of these neighborhood organizations, and we have an entire division in Long Beach that's responsible for supporting those neighborhoods. So that's our point of access to reach into the neighborhoods and say, how does this project relevant to you and how can we support you in realizing your ideas around it?
Great. I was leaving some time in case anybody else wanted to contribute, but my final question is just, I'm curious, you showed a stakeholder map, sort of a web diagram of the various folks that you've talked to and consulted with. What are your thoughts in terms of how to make it happen? Who are going to be the strongest advocates for you, and perhaps the entities who may have some of the resources to make some of these various ideas come to life, and recognizing that it probably doesn't sit all in one place or with one office.
Can tell one thing that Jenny had already mentioned, and if she wants to jump in, she can talk about some of the other organizations. Nothing really happens in Long Beach in a big way without the support of the port. So we've already been to the port, and the port will tell you that Long Beach Port and Los Angeles Port are rivals in everything except sustainability. And that's where they work together, primarily on air quality issues, but also are very interested in being involved in supporting and have already committed to support specifically in some way to this project. But that said, and we see that especially in the social excitement of the moment, something else, nothing happens in Long Beach if it doesn't start in a grassroots way. So sitting out with a couple of the neighborhoods that we know are already very active and offering them small grants to start projects and to engage with some of our collaborative inner city schools. We work with Washington Elementary School. It's right in the heart of the city on a design department. So we have, those are our first stops for doing a first series of proof of concept events along.
I guess I could fill in a bit. During my during my field work, I began to participate through events that nonprofits, especially grassroots, have been putting out, such as like the beach cleanup, or if there's like community meetings. I tried as much as I can to get involved with it and just ask questions. And it seemed like the people that we're talking with were those who were more like disadvantaged in the communities of the city of Long Beach. And there were a lot of just a lot of frustrations and just ways that they want to betterment the community as a whole. And that, I hope that answered your question. Yeah. That is all.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it sounds like you're well on your way and really are ready to listen, which is wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Big project that's going to require a lot of people's inputs to be able to realize. So great questions and terrific answers. Before we jump to our last CSO, we're going to have a few minutes to be able to open questions to anybody that would like to ask questions. So if you would please type in your question in the chat box, and we're going to take them in order in just a couple of moments. All right, without further ado, Mark Spears, our last CSO to comment and ask questions today, is a retired Chief Sustainability Officer from Disney and is very active in Pando Populace. And it's great to see you, Mark. And so, Mark, it's your show.
Thank you very much, Brandt. And really a quick comment, an observation, and then my question. I think the comment, having spent some time, considerable time over the years in Long Beach, I actually think it's one of the most underappreciated cities in California, if not the country. You know, and I think what you've demonstrated through this project is just the rich resource, natural and otherwise, that the city has to offer. The observation really leads from that, which is that I think the video may underplay the value of what you're proposing and the connection with the community. And, you know, I think the question I have is, Long Beach also relies significantly on tourism. I think something like 7,000 jobs, significant amount of revenue, occupancy taxes, Queen Mary, et cetera. And it strikes me that what you're presenting also has a much bigger impact or opportunity to reposition or reset Long Beach post-COVID. And I'm wondering if, as part of your engagement process, community engagement process, you've reached out to the Visitor and Convention Bureau or others that are involved in promoting Long Beach as a destination, as a resource in Southern California.
Any of the students to take the question?
I could go ahead and talk to the best of my ability to that question. So the first item on that was the idea of the community and it being downplayed. But everything that we've done has been circling the community, and we've been working with them so that they are part of the process and are guiding everything so that we make sure it's resilient. And as they kind of address the concerns they have with tourism and you know, the economic development and all of the things that will be post-COVID, as this is a liminary period, which is going to redefine everything, they're showing us their wants and concerns. And again, we look at this as an ecosystem. So when we talk about tourism, the other side of that is, how does the community respond to that? How do they benefit from that? And then what do they take away in making these lasting connections? So we're not only connecting Long Beach as part of this very long, you know, like LA River, but we're also building connections with our global brothers and sisters along this ring of fire and other urban ocean cities, so that we build this appreciation, this connection, and something that is deeply rooted in not only empathy, but something that kind of ties us together by living near these coastal areas. The second part is, as we work with the city and all these other organizations, they're also taking what we're building off of the community and integrating it with the solutions that we're able to provide. So everything becomes this ecosystem that addresses different touch points. And as we continue to develop that in an iterative method, we make sure that there's always room to expand, develop, and improve upon it, so that we're making sure, first and foremost, the community's needs and the community's concerns are taken care of, that accessibility and inclusivity is brought into the space so that we don't exclude anyone. And through all the events which are transpiring now, we're seeing that inclusivity and accessibility has been an issue with design, and that as we kind of push forward with this, all of this community push and all of these community members, both remote and local, in our connection through the Ring of Fire and the LA River to the ocean, shows us that we're making this space accessible to everyone that comes in. tourism is a really big part that's gonna play something. But as we kind of continue to iterate, it kind of builds upon the previous iterations of that.
I think to address your question specifically, as well as far as the jobs that you were talking about, we mentioned this virtual immersive platform that is all connected to our Department of Tourism. So yes, to answer that part of it, yes, we're in contact with them and the platform that they're using, and there are several immersive already on this platform called Explore It of Long Beach, and as well as Mammoth Mountain and Disneyland and all sorts of different ones that you want to. I don't get any word for calling them out, but they have an exceptional tool. So modeling in our app, an X and then PLORIC. Talking about primarily the largest creators and then the port. And tourism that happens in Long Beach are often what we call external trends and transits. So they're actually spending a night in the beach and getting on a cruise ship and going somewhere else. So now in a COVID era, where there aren't as many cruise ships, we have not only the virtual tour to share the assets of Long Beach, those external tourists, now by creating more access to the beach, those day tourists will then become tourism will then have an opportunity to be supported by our local tourism. People that are local that have not been enjoying these resources that external tourists have been able to enjoy. Now these local tourists can benefit from the resources of their city and mitigate some of the impact of the loss of the day tourists from cruise ships.
Thank you, Heather. And Josh, thank you very much for that insight.
Mark, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, great. Hey, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Great responses, everybody. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, Heather, your audio was really breaking up there. I think we got about 80% of it, but you know, good points all on sort of regional tourism versus you know, transit in tourism. I agree with you, Mark. I think Long Beach is probably one of the hidden gems in Southern California and has been for a long time. It's the end of the line, if you will. I remember when the Blue Line went in and things really changed and opened up. It's a fascinating place to be when you're there. And then, but getting there is, you know, it's a different challenge, and it's known for its port, and so you don't have the access. So I think the concept that you've got is really, really fascinating. Adam, we're going to turn over to you to moderate a couple of in the time we've got left, a couple of questions from the public, and Adam, it's yours.
Thank you, Brandt, and thank you, CSOs. I have now 3 questions that people have posted in chat, so let's get running with those. Lauren McKenna asks, are you familiar with the asset-based community development model? Do you have plans, suggestions for engaging the community in revealing, finding existing assets and opportunities themselves? I think, Josh, you very much addressed that. But could you give an active example of meeting someone from the neighborhood or meeting a neighborhood organization and how you make them aware of this initiative and how that could amplify their mission?
Yeah. So one of the big things that all of us have centered on is actually really focusing on field immersion. The thing is to go out there and see what they're seeing, feel what they're seeing, and spend time with that community. This goes from trying out what they do on a daily basis, exploring the spaces, interviewing them, and taking surveys so that we could collect data and see how they not only think about the space, but also how they feel about everything. The emotional connection is something that's very important to this entire project. And we use the word magic in our video because after collecting everything, it's such an emotional catharsis in the way that people can connect with that. And we kind of use a methodology of world building and a couple others kind of mixed in to cross-pollinate. and then select a series of methods so that we can best kind of fit out what works for the community. So we do explore a series of models as well, but we're looking to see how all that kind of comes together and coalesces with the needs of the community so that we can define the best model for them. And sometimes it's a series of things that we picked and pushed together. And the reason is because through working with the community, we've discovered a lot of stuff, and we've discovered things about the sentiment of the area, the feeling of the area, the diversity of the area, and the history, which is rich, from everything to hip hop to the changes in the climate, to the organizations that have been established there, the unions that are established there, the community members that have grown up there, and the new members that are coming in. And as we look at this ecosystem, it builds and builds. Sometimes we had to make amendments to the changes as new information comes in. But again, all this kind of connects back into the field immersion. By spending time with the people there, by participating with them, and by including them in our design process, we not only build something that's relevant, but we make sure that the model that they need is suited and selected by them.
This kind of connects to, and I think this goes to you also, Josh, to tease you somewhat further. Greg says, I love it. And how to explain this project in simpler, more impactful language. It's hard to convey the value, currently feels academic, remote, and uber intellectual. And I think, Josh, you live there. So how would you explain this project to a 12-year-old kid on his BMX driving along the river?
I think that we started in the intellectual form first so that we could kind of get a grasp and understanding of everything. And then we move into the empathy so that everything kind of works in from the original ideation, first starting off on just ideas, and then we go and test them. Field immersion brings out the empathy, removes any biases, and really latches community. From there, I feel that it kind of comes down to three main points. And if I were to explain this to someone that is younger than me and is looking to say, why is this project so important? I would say that this project is important because it's your space and you have the right to reclaim it. You have the right to access it. You have the right to feel included in all this. And you are part of a greater community that cares about you and is connected to the sea.
Jennifer, question for you. So if you talk about the ring, it's about 30 miles, but about 4 or 5% is not connected. Is that up in north of the 405 in North Long Beach, where I found it kind of heartbreaking when I visited the class and I was told that kids in Long Beach have never even visited the ocean. So wouldn't it then be kind of like shouldn't there also be like a reverse route of people cycling to North Long Beach and experiencing that neighborhood and making that part of the larger community rather than this dark spot above the 405?
I don't think I understand your question.
I'm not sure if there is a question. Well, right now there wants to be this route towards, experience the rivers, experience the sea, the wetlands. But shouldn't there also be, go to above the 405, cycle there and cycle through that neighborhood and learn to know your neighbors there?
Yes. The ring does along a healthy amount of North Long Beach. It runs right along DeForest Park, which when I was growing up was never a place I was allowed to go after dusk, but has improved a great deal. It's actually a great place for families now. So DeForest Park is huge. It runs right along the ring. It's got a great like water. It's right along the LA River, and it's got wetlands inside. I actually just went there a few weeks ago after a BLM protest, and it's improved a lot. There's turtles. I mean, there's opportunity for engagement in those neighborhoods now. I think there could be more. They haven't been as neglected as they were when I was growing up there. They're getting a lot more attention and the neighborhoods are appreciating it. I think what we're doing is going to boost that even more, is going to elevate that improvement in that part of town.
So I only have time to squeeze in one last question, and that sorry, Jeannie, but I'll have to make that come from Chris, our CSO. He writes, guarding against gene gentrification is going to be important to ensure the ring of engagement continues to belong to the existing community as opposed to tourist wealthy newcomers. The Atlanta Beltline, a multi-use path of similar size, has been grappling with this challenge and may have lessons learned that could be informative for your project. What kind of case studies have you seen that have been successful in this, or is this unique? Have you looked at the Atlanta Beltline or at the High Line in New York?
I want to say that I'm excited to look into that. And I want to say that this green gentrification has been one of my biggest concerns from the very beginning. I do consider myself an expert citizen from the neighborhood. So I've been kind of championing that we continue to engage the people in the neighborhoods. I mean, in every neighborhood, not just the visible and nicer and accessible neighborhoods. It's really easy to talk to people from Belmont Heights. It's really easy to talk to people in Wrigley. I am hoping to be the bridge that's like, look, I'm comfortable with going to North Long Beach. I'm not afraid of our reputation. So I'm comfortable with going in and engaging the communities where maybe other people aren't as comfortable. But the most important thing is that we talk to other expert citizens, not just me. I don't represent everybody there. And the most important thing is really just talking to people and getting the data from getting like actual reflections from people that live there.
Thank you.
I think that something's important, and I thank you very much for the reference to the Atlanta Beltline. It's been a while since we've looked at it, but we were also not that long ago at the High Line, and I don't know enough about the Atlanta Beltline to speak to it, but the High Line and many of these projects are also master planned from the top down. And this project is crowdsourced from the neighbors up. So we're not going to tell them what the ring looks like in their neighborhood. They're going to tell us how we can support their vision.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, terrific comments, everybody, and great questions. I think that as we start to wrap this up, I'd like to give just a couple of quick observations. Some of these things, to Heather's point, were built from the ground up. You know, the Riverwalk in San Antonio, for example, and some of the places in Austin where they've got riparian views, restaurants, and things that are along the way. They were built and designed that way to attract people. These retrofit kinds of projects are challenging, to say the least, and especially when there's urbanization and industrialization in these communities. I live in rural Montana, and we have tremendous states' rights for public access to land, even though a lot of the land is owned and riverfront is owned by private ranches and private entities, but they protect it fiercely. I think that this is the kinds of things that we're seeing now, where people want to have access to what are essentially public resources, and reclaiming those public resources is the job of these kinds of projects. The sustainability platforms from the county, and this project and the other projects that are included in Pando Days does exactly that. So it's really encouraging to see how you as teams can actually bring these things to light with the community's involvement, the city's involvement, as well as the greater community's involvement, sort of the humanity of the community, if you will. So I'm very excited to see this. Thank you to everybody who has done just a fantastic job. The video was great. The presentation was terrific. To our CSOs for giving their time, and thank you for including me, Eugene, asking me to be the host. I'm very excited to be a member of the Pando Populist Board, and I'm going to turn it back to Eugene for a quick wrap up.
Okay, and thank you so much, Brandt. And many thanks to you, Heather, and to the entire Cal State Long Beach team for creating a fascinating initiative and presentation. Remember, everyone, that you can see the Cal State Long Beach deliverable on our website, pandopopulous.com, and that should be in the chat window. Thanks much to the members of the CSO task force who responded earlier, Russell Green, Chris Ree, and Mark Spears. Many thanks to Pando Days curator, Adam Ewens, festival producer, Betsy Hunter, and story coach, Judith Parker. Pando Days was conceived with the help of the CSO Strategic Task Force and made possible by the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, Second Home, the Mary Knowles Sisters, and many others. Make sure to join us next Tuesday at 1 o'clock for the premiere presentation by USC of their new initiative, CarSick. You can get a preview of it right now on our website. It's up today. Thank you all for joining us again, and have a great rest of your afternoon. Goodbye.